We're going to be working with Aperture today, and to help us measure the light coming into the camera really accurately, we're going to check the setting that we're on the back of the camera. So we're looking for something called metering. So we're going to turn the camera on. I'm going to press the menu button. We want to be on this menu, the camera. If you're not on that already, then click across, go up and down to select it, press OK. Then you're going to go down this menu. It's longer than the screen, so if you can't see the metering, just keep going. Right, we just went past it there, so we're going to go back up to metering, along to the right, and you get 3 options. And this is pretty similar on most digital SLR cameras. We want to be working with spot metering, but just to briefly explain matrix at the top gives you an average of the whole scene. So if it were an image of a landscape with a really bright sky and a dark ground, then it's going to average out that. Center weight is really obvious, takes the center of the scene, and both of those can be useful in different settings where you've got to be quick. But with spot metering, you've got a lot more control over understanding the light and choosing what setting you want it to be on. So that's what we're going to stick with. If I go into live view mode, which we wouldn't normally use but is useful for the video, and I do that, then you can see a little scene I've set up here, and we're going to look on live view. I'm just going to press the button there so it does a little autofocus. It's a bit easier to look at. And if we're looking in the bottom right hand corner here of the screen, we've got a little light meter. So there's a minus to one side, a plus to the other side, and a 0 in the middle. So a correctly exposed image ideally would be the 0 in the middle. And you'll see that light meter change depending on what I hold the camera lens towards. So if I go to the yellow Lego brick, then you can see that that is saying it's correctly exposed on the top bit, so it's getting a nice amount of light. And if I go to that side of it there, it starts to go on the light meter here, it starts to head towards the minus. And then we can see the light changes. That bit of the Lego there is quite similar. We've got a toy pizza slice. And as I go along, oops, I'll go back to there. And I'm just pressing the button there on the top of the camera, half pressing it to help it focus in. So you can see that's really dark in that shadow from that little pizza slice there, and that's going towards the negative. So it would want me to adjust the settings and allow more light to come into the camera. Let's just give that a go. So if I stick in that sort of shadow area there, and I can see at the bottom of the screen here, I'm on an 80th for the shutter speed. So I'm going to make that a bit slower. That's as slow as I can go with the camera just held by hand. And then the aperture, the F number here is f.48. So I'm going to press the button just on the top of the camera here, the plus and minus, and hold it in. And I'm going to turn that wheel. I've got to make sure I'm pointing back at that shadow so it can read it. And let's see, I'll just bring the lens in a bit tighter. And I should be able to get that aperture a little bit wider to 3.8. And you can see that the light meter now for that area is a little bit happier. It's getting brighter across there. I'm just going to zoom back in so we can see the image a little bit more clearly. And you can see as I move across how that light meter changes. So if I was trying to decide what setting I wanted to be on for a particular scene, I might point to the different things, think about what's the most important, and then try taking some pictures at some of the settings and balancing it at 0. So by balancing at 0, what I mean is if I turn that into that shadow place just now, and we've got the aperture on f.48, if that's as wide as I can go, the other thing that I can change, we've already said can't change the shutter speed because that's as slow as I can handhold the camera. This is as wide as it'll go with me zoomed in. So if I want to change anything else, it's going to be the ISO. So I'm just going to come off the live view there, and we're going to go into our I button again there and just change the ISO. And I'm going to make the camera more sensitive to the light, so hopefully it'll feel it's getting more light in the shot. I'm going to just jump up to 800 so we can see a marked difference hopefully, and just push back onto live view. And you can see now that the light meter in the bottom right hand corner there, it's reading that shadow as being a bit more positive. I'm just going to take that picture. I don't know if it can focus on that shadow very well. Now, it's actually reading the shadow quite nicely. It's possibly a little bit overexposed for some of the other pictures. If I press the play button there, that takes us back to that still shot. So I'm using the light meter, but then I'm also looking at what the image is that pops up, and I make some decisions there. So before I decide I'm entirely happy with that, I'd probably take a one that was letting a little bit less light in. What I'll just try for this is I'll just try going back off live view, and we'll go into the ISO again, and we'll just put it in between where we were. So we'll try that at 400, go on to live view so you can see. And that image is a little bit better. The previous image was a little bit too bright. That one's a little bit better exposure. I would say that was fairly correctly exposed. Even if something's a bit too dark or something's a bit too light, I know I've got enough information there tonally that I could do some little edits on Adobe afterwards.